Thank you everyone for being here. We're really excited to be with you, and thank you Kimberly and Codebar for hosting us. We have a few slides just to run through at the start, but I'm going to try and make it quick so that we can crack on with what we're all here for, which is a coding session today with Sergio. But just wanted to tell you a little bit about us and I guess, yeah, why we're here. So we're Boolean, and we're thrilled to be here for this coding session in partnership with Codebar, yeah, supporting the great work that you're doing here at Codebar. We've got Sergio with me. Sergio, you want to say a quick word?
Hi everyone, here's a quick word. No, I'm joking. So I'm Sergio. I'm one of the software engineering instructors, like you see right now in this slide. I have a bit of a background other than software engineering. I did a bit of everything. Worked in a bar, studied airplanes in uni, did network engineering, but then I decided actually coding is the thing I want to do. So I've been part of a bootcamp as well. Then I went to work on a bootcamp, really enjoyed teaching, and then Boolean launched in the UK, and that's when I joined Boolean as well to help establish our program in the UK. So I'm part of the the team in London for Boolean.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Patrick, head up admissions and placement here at Boolean. So I'm actually not a coder. I'm going to be here in awe of Sergio's skills for this coding session. But instead what I do is for everyone who's thinking about joining us, and also for everyone who's finished the course and starting to find work, that's the part that I occupy myself with. Our coding session is a chance to see a live demo of some coding from one of our instructors, and optionally for you to code along as well. So we're going to use a tool called Code Sandbox, which means that if you want to also jump in and make your own code sandbox and follow along, then please do feel free. It's a chance for you to learn what you could do after around 6 weeks at Boolean. After around 6 to 7 weeks, you should be able to be at this level. It's a chance to meet one of our instructors, and it's a chance to get a feel for our teaching style. Order of the day is to kind of wrap up with this introduction in about 5 or 10 minutes. Let Sergio take over until about 7, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. However is easiest, if you want to write questions in the chat during the session, then we can try and answer them during the session as well. If you want to unmute yourself as well, obviously please feel free to get involved. This will be great as an interactive session too. A quick note on who are we. So we are, skipped a slide. We're an international tech academy. We style ourselves as an international tech academy rather than a boot camp, but essentially we do the same thing. We help people who want to start a new career as software developers to do that. A few numbers around us. We've enrolled 1,200 students now. We operate in 2 countries, Italy and the UK. In the UK, we're also open to anyone who speaks English and is ± 1 hour GMT. So that means if you're in Ireland, that means if you're on the continent, Europe, then the course is also open for you too. And we've had 800 companies hire our students as well. So some good numbers there. What do we do? How do we do it? So we run a 6-month full-time online course. We're heavily focused on a learning by doing approach. So the idea is that you're always doing practical work, and we minimize the time that we're just talking at you. There's a lot of one-to-one support. It's a really big part of our offering. We think it's important that you can learn from people who know their stuff. We give 6 months of career services, and we also do a money-back guarantee. We're just going to jump into a few of these in a bit more detail. This is the course that you'll do if you study with us. We split it into roughly 5 modules, which are HTML and CSS, then JavaScript and programming logic. Then we move into more heavy focus on front end and UIs with React. We move to the back end, servers, APIs, authentication, all that good stuff with TypeScript and Node. And then we try and get you ready for the world of work by doing a bit of a look at some computer science fundamentals, and also 2 final projects, so a group project and a solo project at the end. The way that we kind of structure each of those individual modules is we have these green weeks where we're kind of quite heavily focused on learning. So introducing you to new concepts. You'll have a live lesson on Zoom every morning. And then in the afternoon, you'll work on an individual exercise with that one-to-one support. After the first 2 weeks, roughly, you'll have covered most of the ground that you need to cover. And now it's all about repeat, practice and repeat, practice and repeat. So we now do longer exercises with you during that yellow week where you practice, and each of those exercises might take 1 to 2 days. And we'll throw some extra workshops in wherever they're needed. And then finally, up until now, your learning's been scaffolded by us telling you what to work on. And now the kind of missing piece is for you to work on something that you've designed yourself, to create something yourself. So at the end of every module, you do a project. And this is the magenta week, the pink week there at the end, where we'll help you we'll define some requirements, we'll set some scope to your project, and then you'll work on it for the rest of the week. Usually that's solo. Sometimes we'll pair you up as well. We try and mix it up as well, just so that you get a chance to pair program as well, but also to explore this stuff on your own, because both skills are important. On those study weeks in particular, your timetable is going to look like this. 9:30 a.m. till 1 is that live lesson on Zoom. Don't worry, it is not a big 2.5-hour lesson. There are regular breaks. There are regular breaks just to go to the loo and get a drink, etc. But also for you to go away and try some coding as well. So we try and split those up into kind of small bite-sized pieces, so you don't get too brain fried. And then in the afternoon, between 3 and 6, you'll be working on an individual exercise. We try and encourage between 1 and 3 to get out, get some lunch, get some fresh air, do your shopping, go to the pharmacy, do whatever you need to do, and then come back in the afternoon feeling refreshed. 3 reasons that we think you should choose us. So we touched on that one-to-one support. We've actually built a custom platform that you can see on the right there called Montessori. This really helps us keep track of our students and to see how they're all doing. And it helps us to spot who might need a little bit more support. But we also do put the onus on you. So we want you to reach out to us when you're stuck. And we will usually not tell you the answer straight away, because coding, as many of you will know, is all about problem solving. And if we just solve the problem for you, then you never get a chance to learn. So we support you, but we don't always tell you the answer, which I think is important. We offer career services. This on the left is a screenshot of our hiring platform, which is also a custom built software. And this is where companies can sign up and basically search for all of the students on our platform and get in touch with them directly. That's one of the career services we offer, as well as CV feedback, interview practice, advice on job hunting, and we'll also check in with you every week for those 6 months after you finish to make sure that you're working towards your goal of finding a job in tech. And finally, our money back guarantee. This is slightly different to a job offer guarantee. The idea with this is we're confident that you'll find a job, and if you don't find one within 6 months of finishing, we'll give you a refund of the course fees. As far as we know, we're the only bootcamp in the UK that offers this, and it's us just basically putting our money where our mouth is, that we back ourselves, and if you put in the hard work too, then you should get a job by the end. Final thing, we have an exclusive offer for codebar, a little codebar discount, which is a £500 discount off the course. This is just to shout out the great work you're doing here at Codebar. All you have to do is when you apply, tell us that you came from Codebar. And if you want to head to these links, this will also help us know that you came through Codebar. So we've gone very old school / COVID with the QR code scanner. The QR codes even, so if you've got a scanner, feel free to quickly take a note of those. Otherwise, the addresses are on.boolean.careers/codebar apply, and then the same again /codebar free week. So the apply is if you want to apply straight away, if you want to have a chat with our admissions team, and the free week is if you want to have a chance to try the first week of the course for free. So that's our fundamentals camp. We've made it on demand on the website, so you can just head up to there and try it out for free. Whew, record time. I'll leave off now. I'll leave this for stop sharing, and I'll let Sergio take over for the coding session.
Sure.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening to us. Thank you everyone for being here. I will share my screen. That's the one. Great. Well, welcome once more everyone to our coding session. So what have we got in store for today? It's basically a little sample, I would say, of what a student would be able sort of to achieve after 6 weeks of doing the program with us, right? This is a little, let's say, app. Because we've got an app, it's an app that is fully built with HTML, and we're going to add some JavaScript to it, which will be more or less what a student will be able already to achieve it by then. And yeah, so first of all, before jumping any code, I think it's interesting to mention that nowadays it's pretty easy to have platforms online for you to code without having much of a setup. And that's exactly what we got here for you. It's called Code Sandbox, like Patrick mentioned earlier. And it's pretty nice because it has a little coding editor for you and a little preview window as well. Because we're working with the languages of the web here, so HTML and CSS and JS as well. So we can get a nice little preview straight away as we're coding. Another cool feature of using one of these platforms is that you can see my code. You can see it live even as we're making it, and you can play around with it and tinker and look at it later. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a little sharing link that I will drop in the messages and the chat. There we go. And this little link will allow you to then follow my code. If you want, you can code along as well. To get like a little blank slate with just a little template I've got here, you can click this little fork button here on the top right. That will give you like a little copy of what I've got here, and then you can try to follow and code along with me. Or you can revert back to the original URL I just gave you, and you'll see the code there that I've been creating. Cool. Now, regarding our little app, what are we got in store for you today? We thought it would be interesting. We was just thinking what would be interesting to show you what a student can do and bring everything together. And we thought to having like a little silly app that creates a random text for us, a random phrase that looks like a human wrote it, but yeah, has complete no sense. So we end up always with fun results doing that. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So a random phrase generator, something that we basically click on this little generate phrase button that we got here. And we're going to have a little phrase just popping up there, a little sentence for us that is going to sound like someone wrote it, but it's going to make complete no sense, because why not? Nice. What do we have here though? Because you can see that I already got some code, and we kind of going to start with a template that has some bits and bobs in this sandbox, mostly parts that take a little bit of time and a bit more boring to see me doing. So I thought we might as well just have it, which is mainly the HTML bit and the CSS. So quick words about these. What are these doing for us? So HTML is mainly the skeleton. So what kind of elements we're going to have on the page, where the text will go, and buttons we appear on a page. That will be through these little tags that we got here. Page 1, that's going to be the text that we're going to have. Button over there, that's going to be the button that we're clicking on. And you can even see that for us to do a little test, you can play around with this. If I delete phrase and save quickly, now my button just says phrase. If I revert back what I have and I say silly there, now my button has generate silly phrase right there. So this is what the HTML is doing for us. We got to see as well, the cool thing about this editor is that as I changed my HTML, I save it straight away, boom. I got to see what my changes are live on the page. Super nice for us to code along. So yeah, this is what the HTML is doing for us, creating the structure of the page. And then we got a little CSS file as well. And CSS is more about the actual looks, where things are going to go, what color are they going to have, what type of font they're going to have, you know, the images, the size, what will be the size of images if you were to have some images or icons, like this little icon here at the bottom, what size is going to be, what size is going to text going to be, all this kind of stuff. That's what we're going to do with CSS. You can also play around with these. Feel free to play with it. For us to see what it's doing, you can even play around and try to change some colors. Another cool thing about this editor is that it has some helpers sort of sections that will pop up for us that we can play around with it. And I could even change this color to something more, this weird, ugly color here. If I save it, now my color of the page change all of a sudden. So this is mainly what CSS is doing for us, the more aesthetic bits and layout sort of positioning. Where goes, what goes where. I won't go much about what each one of these are doing, because it will take a long time as well. And I think it's more interesting to see the behavior. So what can we do with JavaScript, right? Because so far, HTML and CSS give us looks, give us structure, but doesn't give us the behavior. I'm clicking on a button, nothing happens. There's no text changing, nothing. And that's what we want to see in the end. I want to be able to click on this button, see some silly text popping up there, some phrase popping up there. And that's where our index.js comes into place. Right now it's quite empty. Got nothing here. And we can get cracking into the cool part of it. Nice. But actually, before I even start writing some code, you're going to ask any programmer, any coder, before I start writing, we actually need to do some thinking. We need to do some analyzing. We need to understand what's going on. And if, for those of you that code or been for a while or going to start coding, you will realize this is that always begins like that. The process of creating something is that we're going to plan first, and then we're going to plan again. And then we realize our first plan is rubbish. We're going to have to go back to the drawing board. And by the third time they plan something, then we're ready to implement it. Just to realize again that everything is broken, and then we have to go back to planning. This is what really coding is at the end of the day. Loads of planning, trying to understand what the problem is, break it down in smaller bits, and then try to write some code that solves that problem, right? There's a big problem solving sort of element involved to it. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do here as well, is solving a problem. Is solving the problem that right now, I click this button and nothing shows up. But I want some text here to show up. So that's my problem. And then before doing any coding, I'm going to think about my problem. I'm going to break it down into smaller bits. So I'm going to ask myself, if I were to describe what needs to happen behind the scenes for me to be able to click on this button and have a phrase popping up here, what steps will be involved? And that's exactly what I'm going to start to do. So just a little note, there's little funny forward slashes there. They say, this is a comment. This is not to be interpreted as a code. I can write whatever I want here. My app will not break. So let's say steps to solve my problem. So we were saying, oops, yeah, I write a lot of typos, and you're probably going to see a lot of them. So knock yourselves out to try to find my typos, and even keep tabs of them at the end. If you want to tell me how many typos I did, that's always funny to watch. You can even make a buzzer sound if you like, every time I make a typo. Cool, so steps to solve my problem. I can say then, to even start by creating a phrase, I need some words. So I need a list of words that I can use to then put together and create this sentence, right? This phrase, because that's what a sentence, a phrase is. It's just a bunch of words lined up together to some sort of making sense. So I'm going to need to have a list of words. So that's my first step. I could say create a list of words. That's for sure. Cool. Once I have a list of words somewhere in my code, I thought I'm going to have to find a way to randomly pick from this list. Because again, that's the whole point of the app, is to randomly generate something. So I'm going to have to be able to randomly pick a word from this list. So able to randomly pick the word from list. And there we go, sneaky R in there. Cool. After I'm able to then randomly pick a word from this list, I'm going to have to find a way to put them together to actually form a sentence, right, of some sorts. So that would be my next step, right? So it will be create a sentence, a phrase. We're going to go with phrase because that's what we call our app anyway. Consisting of random words. Cool. By this stage, I should have my sentence, my phrase. What will be the next step? Well, I need to display it. So I think that's going to be my next step, really, will be find a way of displaying my phrase there. So display my phrase on the page. Okay, I have a list that goes from selecting a random word from a list of words up to displaying it. But I'm missing a step here, because originally I said I want to do all this on the click of the button. So this needs to be my actual primer, right? This needs to be what's going to start my action. So I need to be able to connect the button to the creation of the phrase. Cool. I'm just going to add my side tab. I can press, for those of you on Windows, you can do Control B and it will hide your files on the side, or Command B if you're on Mac. So this goes out of the way. Ooh, there's loads of typos there. Creation. Nice. All right, I sort of got a plan, more or less. I've got a list of things that I need to do to achieve my behavior. Most likely, as I go through them, I will realize that I need to break them down into even smaller steps. And this is what I was mentioning by maybe my plan is flawed. I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board, try to understand where I missed something, and redo my plan and keep going. So iteration, really important when it comes to writing any piece of code. But now that I've got my plan, I can confidently start writing my code to actually get my random generator going. And my first step is create a list of words. And so I need to then, in that case, think about a few things. First of all, how do I store a value in JavaScript? Even more, how do I store a string? And finally, how do I store a list of strings? So a list of words. And this I know from experience, so from art, but you can find these kind of answers as well once you're going through the learning process. And this is going to be the process of learning syntax, right? You're going to learn these special keywords that will have a certain behavior in your code. And then by putting together all these keywords that have a behavior, it's almost like a puzzle. You're going to create another behavior that then you want to keep in your code and running it at a certain time. So I know that for keeping a value in JavaScript is using a variable. And to use a variable, I'll need to use the word const. Const means a constant, so it's a value that really never changes. And I'm going to say that my variable now is going to need a name that kind of represents what's going to be in there. And this is going to be, for now, a word. And I know that a word in a programming world is usually called a string, and a string in JavaScript is with the little quotes. And I'm going to say whatever the word is. So person. Cool. I got a way of saving a value in JavaScript. How can I see if this works? I'll just use console log. And this bit, every time that you put this in your code, all it's going to do is it will print out the value of whatever you put in there into what is called a console. And we can see that we've got a little console here at the bottom of our preview window. If I open it up, right now it says cleared. If I put in hello world in there, the classic hello world of all the programming languages, the first program that everyone runs. The way to do it in JavaScript is using our lovely console log. I save the file. By saving the file, the code gets run. And here we go. Hello world, no console. Yay, we wrote a program. Right there. So we tick the box, writing our first program. Cool. So when I also use this little console log, I can give it variables to it. So I can check what's the value that currently is stored. In this case, it should be easy for us to guess. That should be person. But if I put the little word in there and I run it, cool, I got person coming through. If I put there cheese, and it's probably me already, get a bit peckish for dinner. There we go, cheese coming through. If I put a number, and notice that now I'm not using the quotes anymore, and I've got a different color, that's a number. And I run it as well. I got the little number coming through as well into the console. So this console log will allow me to check at any time in my code, what's the value in a certain variable. So that's what we're going to use it as well to check our assumptions, check our code as we go along. Cool. So I know how to create a word now. So cheese. If I want the second word, I can say word 2. And I can say then the person. If I say word 3, so I got 3 words here now. 3 variables, 3 words. I can use console logs to put them. Oops. You can see also that the code editor, so Code Sandbox, is very helpful and tries to guess what you're doing, and it gives you a little hint of what's the command name that you're putting there, right? What's the name of that method? So in this case, it knows about word 2, and I can copy it and can put word 3 in there. And there we go, cheese person 8. Maybe if I change the order this to cheese 8 person, well, we can say that. Let's see if it's a kind of carnivore cheese that eat people. So I can guess I can change the order. Person cheese 8. I'll get there. Yay, person 8 cheese. You can see that we kind of create a sentence there already, right? By just having 3 words and putting in the correct order in our code. Hooray, we've got a sentence. Not quite the what I'm trying to achieve, but I'm getting somewhere. So my problem. This is super repetitive. I'm creating variables over and over again. This doesn't look like a list, so I'm not quite happy. So this is the first change I'm going to do, the first iteration, which is I'm going to stop using single variables to store my words, and I'm going to create a list. I also know that a list in JavaScript is called an array. And the way we create it is by having a variable where we're going to keep it. So my variable will be array of words. And then I'm going to use these square brackets. And these square brackets means this is going to be a list of values that I'm going to put there. And these values can be anything. It can be numbers, can be strings, true or false. There's also a different type of values that we can have. But in this case, I'm going to put my person 8 cheese. And if I now just a little notice that there's a little comma there, that's how I separate the values within my list. So this is 3 different values within the list. I'm going to use my console log to test it out, see if that works for me. And I can also use this little like forbid sign, I guess, to clear the console. Save my code to run it. Yay, got a little list. Person 8 cheese. Good. We're going somewhere. I actually kind of completed my first item already. I already created a list of words. Cool. I don't need these other extra variables that I'm playing around earlier. I just need my array of words kind of variable. I'm going to go for my second item of this list, which is able to randomly pick a word. And I just spotted another one. There's this like wild mushrooms. Pick a word from a list. So first thing I need to understand first. Well, how do I pick a word from a list? How do I say from this list, I just want person? That would be by referencing the variable where the list is, and then again using our little square brackets and specifying the place where my value that I want to access is in the list. So is it the first item in the list? Is it the second item in the list? Is it the third item of the list? So I'm going to say I want to access person. That's the first item. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, first item, that should be probably number 1. So because it's the position I'm looking for. So number 1 being the first position of the list should be person. I'm going to test it. Well, that didn't work quite as expected. Well, I have 8 coming through. And that is my second item on the list. Oh, blimey. What's going on here? Well, I happen to know as well, because, yeah, I've been doing this for a while, that lists in the programming world, not in JavaScript only, but the programming world, actually, they are referenced. So the position where the items are in the list start at the number 0. And you ask him why, like, why not? Once again, there's a long explanation behind it, but it starts at the number 0. So number 1 is going to be the second position, the second element. If I want to access the first one, it has to be number 0. There we go. So now if I change this to 0, I run my code, I got a person back. Yay. Got the number 1, got the 8, go to number 2, I got the cheese. Nice. So now I have a way of accessing a single element, so a single item of my list via the position. So this is position. The term that we use is it's index. Index basically means position. So index 0 is the first list, index 1 is the second, index 2 is the third, so on and so forth. Cool. Being this index, it's a number. And this is an interesting bit. It's an interesting bit because I don't want only access a certain element from the array, right, from my list. I want to be able to access it randomly. So if I have a way of randomly generate a number, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to randomly access any element from this array by just having a random number. That's possible as well. And we're going to use another feature of JavaScript here, which is the mathematical operations that are inbuilt in the language itself. I'm going to start by having another place, another variable. So variable being this box. When I keep stuff, I'm going to have one of these boxes, this place. I'm going to call it random number. I'm going to use then this feature of JavaScript to access random numbers. It's coming from this section is called math, just over there. Intrinsic object, we're just going to gloss over what that means at the moment, but provides basic mathematic functionality and constants. Cool. That will also give me access to something which is called, and we can see already we got a lovely autocomplete from Code Sandbox telling me what can I do with math. Can do logarithmics, can do maximum minimums, the power, elevated powers, and ooh, look at that, random. That's quite promising. Returns a pseudo random. Again, we're going to look over this bit. Number between 0 and 1. Interesting. I'm going to call for this, and using this parentheses basically means I want to run this feature of math, and we're going to see another moment in a second what are the places we're going to use this little parenthesis as well. But the parenthesis is just saying I want to run the random for math, and whatever is being given to me, stick it into that random number variable. I'm going to console log it. I'm going to check what's going on in my code. I want to know what the random number is going to be. Cool. I get something here. I got my little person because I still got this one here. Probably going to remove it. I'm going to do something is called comment out. And you can do that using in your keyboard, when you got the cursor over the line, if you do command / or control / in your keyboard, you're going to be able to automatically comment out the line. And notice that now you've got the little / there. So it doesn't run no more. Now I only have this console log. Let's see. Cool. I'm getting a random number. And every time that I refresh this little page, so refreshing the page will make the code run again as well. I get a new little random number. There's a bit of a problem though. So this random number, it never goes over 0. It's always 0 there. So this is kind of annoying. Not quite what I'm looking for. But I can do something with this. Again, problem solving, right? I am trying to implement something, run into a problem. I need to think to myself now. And this goes back a bit to those like school maths, right? And thinking about, oh, if I multiply a number that is decimal by another whole number, I do get a whole number back, don't I? I got a suspicion that's the case. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to test this out, and I'm going to use this star, and that means times. And I'm going to do the classic multiply by 10, just to see what is going to happen to this number there. Save my code. Okay, that's more interesting. I'm getting a 7 there. I can work with that. Another 7, another 7, and another 7, another 2. Cool, got a 2, got a 7, we got a 0. Cool, 4. Getting numbers. That's good. I'm not so quite interested about this decimal bit because as we've seen earlier, there's no decimals when we're trying to access elements of an array, and that's the ultimate goal here. So I'm going to use another feature of the math library, which is going to be, it's called floor. And what this does is it removes these little decimal bits, preserves the whole bit from the left of the dots without applying any rounding, you know, those rounding rules that I don't even remember. Up to a certain point, you need to up, from another point onwards, you need to down it. So it doesn't care. It just preserves that one. I save my code. Nice. Getting 0. No decimals. That's cool. That's something I can work with. I'm getting 1, 8, 4, 0. So 8 again. That's interesting. I can still see a problem, which is I'm getting numbers that are higher. So for example, 8. They're higher than the amount of items I got inside of my array of words. And this could be a problem. And let's see how this could be a problem. I'm gonna change my console logs again. I'm gonna bring this array of words. I'm gonna use my little random number variable. And notice that now this variable is gonna be here. So in reality, this variable will contain this number that's random, and that's what's going to be used to access any of these items. I save it. Cool. I'm getting person. I'm going to rerun again. Ooh, I'm getting undefined. Rerun again. Undefined. Undefined. 8. Undefined. So this is a bug. This one is one of the sneaky ones because it's there, but you don't really see it until it will make everything crash and burn. I'm already thinking this is going to be a bug, so I spotted it. Okay, cool. But sometimes this will cause it for you have to crash, and you have to sort of like reverse, trace back all your steps, and use these little console log statements everywhere to try to figure out why is this happening? Why is this a thing that I'm getting? Breaking my hub somewhere. So I need to find a way to sort of keep this little random number between boundaries of how many items I have. And just to play around with this, I know that if I change this to the amount of stuff that I got inside of my list, that will keep it within boundaries. And you can reach this conclusion by either, well, remembering a bit of your maths from the school or by playing around with it. But if I say 3 there, this is sort of like the amount of items on this list. I will get numbers that only are inside of this amount of items in the list. Refresh the page, getting 0, and remember 0 is the first element. I refresh the page, I get 0 again, get 1, so 1 is the second element. And let me see if I can get the third element if I'm lucky enough. Well, not my lucky day. Hey, here we go. Cool. You can see that now the numbers don't go over anymore. So if I go back to this console log, I will be able to sort of refresh the page. Cool. Getting words, cheese, person, cheese. Nice. So I'm getting words from this little list of stuff I got there. By getting words in a random way, I don't have to sort of hard code it. Last bit, so we can move forward, is that I am still hard coding this little 3 there, which is the amount of elements. If I have another element added, let's say graded, now I have 4 elements. I'm still having only 3, the number 3 hard coded, which means only the first 3 will be randomly selected because this is my boundary there. That's not cool. I don't want that. So I will use a property that every single list in JavaScript has, and that will give me the amount of items that's inside of the list. And I can call that property by using the name of the variable that contains the list. And then I'll say its length. And by length means what is the amount of stuff inside. And in this case, I will get 4. If I remove this one, I'll get 3. But let's use the 4 so we can test it. And we can save. Well, we've already got graded coming through, so we can see that as the 4th element is being randomly picked. This is working. Happy days. Cool. Now, I'm just thinking that maybe this array of words is not really involved enough. Don't really have good amount of choices to really select stuff. So I'm going to create a few other array of words, so a list of words, so we can have a bit more choice. So because if you think about this, a phrase is made of certain type of words in a certain specific place. right? And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create these lists that kind of represent the different elements that is part of a sentence that make it sound human, even though it has no sense. And this case, I actually already got some of them here prepared for me, because that would be funny to actually watch me typing all this and making an expressive amount of typos. So I'll just putting them in here, and you'll be able to see them as well if you follow my template. They're in this little helper.js. And you can see that I mostly divided this in 3 different lists. A list of nouns, which is kind of represent like a something, so a person or an object or whatnot. So a list of actions, so like verbs, things that are happening, right? Actions, and a list of articles, because that gives it the things that are happening on. Well, there's pretty sure there's people there that have better understanding of English than I do that could explain better an article. I'm so glad I'm not an English teacher, because otherwise I'll be yeah, out of job pretty quickly. Anyway, now I got these 3 lists, and all of a sudden I'm gonna have to do this thing for the 3 lists, because I'm gonna have to grab this random word from not only 1 list, but from 3. So in this case, I'm gonna sort of make sure I can reuse this piece of code more than once. And for that, I will use something that is called a function. Function. Who remember functions from the math school, from school days? Those horrible things that we had to all try to abstractly understand, will never make sense because there's a bunch of letters and no numbers. So how do I operate with this thing? Cool. We have them here in coding as well, but they are usually easier to understand than those math ones. They represent functions. They basically represent a piece of code, and it's a piece of code that's going to live inside of this little curly brackets. And it's a piece of code that I can reuse in many places as many times as I want. We'll have always the same result, the same behavior, sorry, not result. I will call this piece of code something. I will say pick random word. And we're going to need to do this. I'm going to have to find a random number. And I'm going to need to sort of do this.
Sergio, we've had a request to also write it as an arrow function for comparison.
Ooh, that's a bit of an advanced topic there. I will be happily do that after we're done with exercise. So for people that don't fully understand what is a function doing, maybe might get a bit confused at that stage. If that's okay, I can do that at the end. Cool. There we go. Got a little piece of code that it lives inside of this comfy little brackets house now. It does know about the outside world. Mostly does know about the outside world. It lives closed in there. That poses a problem because now we don't have any more this array of words, and we want this array of words to be well, different arrays. I want it to be these nouns, these actions, and these articles at some point in my code, but I don't want to hard code in. So I'll create a little placeholder, and this placeholder will be this param here, and it will be sort of like a requirement. This function, to work properly, it will need to have this placeholder filled in with something. And this placeholder, I will call it list of words. You can give any name that makes sense for you. The naming here does matter. The naming here does matter. Always choose something that you can reason with and make sense in your code so that you can understand it. So my little function, then it needs a list of words, being any of these three lists of words here. And now I'm going to replace my placeholder. I'm going to use my little placeholder. I'm going to say that whenever this function runs and it does get the list of words, that list of words that is being used, I will also use it in this little bit. So I'll get the length from the list of words that is coming through into my function. So if I'm using articles, the length will be 3. If I'm using actions, the length will be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, I believe. If I'm using nouns, will be, I'll say 10, something like that, right? So this will change depending on the list of words that we're going to use on. Brilliant. That will be the case of this little array of words too. Because at the end of the day, the idea of this function is pick a little random word from this list. And so we need to make sure that the list we've got here is the list of words. The last bit is we need to make sure that whatever we are selecting randomly is given back out into the world so we can use it in other pieces of our code. Because again, our code now lives inside of this little house of curly braces, doesn't know about the outside world. So I need to explicitly say, return this value out and about for me. So that's what the return is doing. Cool. I should be able now to come to my little console log and say, pick random word from the nouns. And I will even put 2 others. And I will say from the actions and from the articles. Let's just clear this one so we have a clear view of what's happening here. Refresh the page. Cool. Comfy chair is a. Cool. A coming from there. Is from the actions. Comfy chair from the nouns. Refreshing the page again. Dog jumped on the. Perfect. A bunch of random words that I can have on demand anytime that I want. All right. We're getting places. We're working through our little list and we're writing some code. We're testing it along and we almost reaching our little finish line there. So I already got my list of words. I'm able to randomly pick a word from a list. And now I just need to create this phrase that is consisting of these random words, right? For this.
Just to time check, Sergio, as well. We're on 7:10. Just
brilliant. Okay, brilliant. All right, this is my cue to speed it up. We're going to create one of these little functions because I'm already knowing I'm going to need to actually randomize this phrase every time that I click on my button. This gives me the cue. I'm going to reuse this piece of code. So I'm going to have to return something again. And what am I going to return? I will return straight away, actually, and we can do this, a string. Remember that a string I mentioned earlier, it is how do we represent a piece of text in JavaScript. So I'm going to return a string. But this string will be dynamically recreated every time that I call this function. How do I do that? Little trick that's called interpolation, so a little bit fancy name, but it's a fancy name that it just means run some code within this string and the return value becomes text. Notice I'm already saying return value. That gives us a hint of what we're going to use here. And the code, the way we run it is using this little $sign and curly braces within this backticks. And in this case, I'm going to use my pick random word. And I'm going to start with an article. Then after the curly braces there, this space will be preserved. So there will be a space in our little sentence, a little phrase. I'm just going to copy this one, for the sake of brevity. Another one, and we'll just give it a noun here. So another random noun, space, a random action, space, and let me just get a bit of, so we can see what's happening. Can even put another article there, and finally another noun. Cool. I got this weird looking piece of code that is generating this piece of string. What's happening here in a nutshell? All of these functions, pick random word, they're going to run, pick a random word from each one of these lists. Whatever they return becomes a string with the little spaces and everything. We call this function generate random phrase. There we go. Let's test this out. Let's remove all the console logs that were just doing something from us earlier. And we can just comment them out. Let's use this little one here. I'm just going to say generate random phrase. Where did I went? CSS, why? I want to go here. There you go. Cool. Already something coming through there. Let me clear the console. Notice that the console log is already. Yay, the config share talked with giant red panda. And the programming language bought the giant red panda. A person is having dinner with some ninja. Lovely, lovely sentences that make no sense. The Ed is having dinner with the football. Whoever the Ed is, sounds very important. I'm just going to make a little tweak. I'm going to make these articles. Ooh, no, not here, actually. I'm going to make the tweak here. I'm just going to upper case. And I know this by the top of my head. This might explode. And it exploded. I think because I did a typo. Ooh, not what quite I expected. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm not going to play around with this because otherwise we're going to spend too much time here. But there's a way that we can just uppercase a little T over there, but that's going to require a bit of coding because sometimes these things are not easy. And as you can see, we can upcase everything, but we can't really upcase just the first letter. So this is a bit more tricky than it sounds like. We could come back to that one later if you got the time. But let's go for the finish line. I got a way to generate a random phrase. Here we are. I just want now to display it here. How I'm going to do this? I'm just going to quickly create another function and I'm going to call it display phrase. And this little function here doesn't need any of this anymore. And what it does, it will grab our phrase. Oops. This is a very tricky word to write, actually. Generate my random phrase. So I'm going to do what I'm doing in the console log there. And now I'm going to use what JavaScript is good at, which is I'm going to grab the HTML on the page, this little bit here, and I'm just going to call this. I remember this is an age header element. Let's call that the header. And to do this, I'm going to use another inbuilt functionality from JavaScript. JavaScript knows about the HTML on the page. I then can do something that's called a query selector. And here, I just need to make sure I give it the CSS class or selector. So that we have in this HTML. So the class is phrase in this case. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to come here. I'm going to say, I want to grab the element that has the class of phrase. Then the last bit we need to do is saying the inner text of that element will become actually our phrase. Right. In this case, there's no return because what I'm doing inside of this piece of code, I don't care about the return value. I don't care if there's anything left from it. I'm just doing a change in a page. So instead of just console log it, like I was doing here, I'm going to run it. So remember what we were saying earlier, running a function, you just use the little parentheses there. And yay, we got the text changing every time that, ooh, I think I broke something. Not quite sure what. Oh, it's just being slow. Okay, that's a relief. But we have the text changing. There we go. The giant red panda jumping over some big piñata. Some ninja enter the room, the cat. Still not on a click. We're almost there. So what do we need to do? Let's just close this one. I got a way of changing the text on the page on demand. I just need to find the right time to do this. And the right time to do this, like we said earlier, is clicking this button. So I'm going to do something similar I did earlier. I'm going to create another function. And will be listen to clicks. So this function will be listening to the clicks. What are we going to do in this function? We're going to do something similar, grab the button. And here, using the same functionality, the query selector. Query selector there. Let's look at what is sort of unique in this button. Come to the index HTML. I can see the button has this little generate phrase class. Brilliant. I can use that for me. Same logic, a class and CSS class is the little dot over there. I'll put the name of the class. I love the button. The little bit I need to say is that now the button will have an event listener, and this one it's inbuilt functionality that JavaScript has, that any element that grabs, it can manipulate its properties. And one of the properties of the button element is the ability to listen to an event. Event in this case is clicking. Clicking is an event. Dragging around the page is an event. Right click is an event. All these interactions on the page, they are events. And I'm going to listen for these events. More specifically, I'm going to listen for a click. And when the click happens, I'll just need to give something to do. And this something will be display the phrase. In this case, I'll just need to give a reference to the function to saying, just keep this reference here. When the click happens, you run that function. So that's what I'm telling my code here. So I'm not executing the function. I'm just keeping a reference there. And now to finish off, I just need to say, listen to my clicks, run it as soon as the script is loaded into the page. Generate a phrase. Yay! I got some text going to the page. On demand, comfy chair, talk to some dog. Seems pretty plausible as well. Some programming language read a book about the person, because that's what computers do nowadays. They read books about people, and loads of them. Some big piñatas, a comfy chair. They could be comfy chairs as well, especially if they're nice and fluffy piñatas. Right. The cat jumped over a comfy chair. They do that all the time, and they scratch them as well. So here we go. We've got a little generator, random word generator, random phrase generator, with a bit of JavaScript, bit of the basics that you can pick up and put together, and then get like some little nice touch that you can easily incorporate in a site and a website. If you want to do a prank with someone, instead of having a submit button that actually submits, you have a submit button that randomly generates a phrase for you, and then you're going to see some angry customers. Well, why not? Don't do that if you work as a programmer, please. But yeah, that's basically what I had for you guys. And I guess now it's the time for questions, if you've still got some time left. So apologies for running over.
No.
Got to be carried away in explanations.
It's good. It's super helpful. But yeah, we've got 5 minutes, I think. So if there's any burning questions, yeah, like Kimberly said, yeah, just drop them down here. And is this online tool free for us to use? Yeah, Code Sandbox is completely free to use. You can sign up for an account. You can make your own sandboxes on there to play around in. But really cool is that you can also follow other people. So you can save this one, you can fork this one, you can come back to it at any time. This is one for you, Sergio. Can we import arrays from helper.js instead of copying them across?
Yes, we can. That's a bit more like an advanced topic, importing stuff from other files. The same thing as I just remind me now that there's the little question someone asking earlier about ES6 functions too. But yes, you can use imports in these files as well, if you'd like, because Code Sandbox takes care of that for you. So you could split your code around, and you can have different files being brought over into other files as well. You could do something like this, and again, I'm probably already going. And in this side, we just need to make sure that we have an export at the end. Actually, we need this export to go into here and going into here. Oops. And onto here. And with these little exports over there, we can now come to our little imports with these little curly braces there. We can say then I want the nouns, I want the actions, and I want the articles, I believe that's what I called. And I can just do, it's going to complain they got the same name. I can just comment that out, save the page, and I can still got the little random generated phrase, but instead of coming from our little arrays that we created, we just importing them for the other file, just like that.
Boom. Love it.
Super easy. Quickly answer, just to someone was asking for a comparison of a little ES6. This is what ES6 is. Pick a random word, will be my function now. My little argument will come right after the equal sign, so a list of words. And then the arrow that someone was asking for, here's our lovely arrow. This is telling me it's the same thing as saying, oh, this is the function. And I can now copy this body, put the body there. I just need to comment this one out. And there's some lovely text coming through. So it's a different way of writing JavaScript. There's some advantages. I think it's a bit more scope, but there's a little example here how you can refactor your functions for ES6 as well.
There's a great comment here from Mel and Marit as well, that talking about functions. Functions are really difficult to get your head around. Is it okay not to understand them straight away? That's a bit of a blocker to JavaScript. I think that's definitely something we've seen on the course as well. It just takes time. It takes tons of practice. It takes tons of banging your head against the wall and getting it wrong.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
one day the penny will drop and it will all make sense.
Yeah, it's all about chasing this moment of the penny drop moment, right? The moment, right? And this comes with practice. And we see students taking quite a long time of daily practice with functions, because the idea itself that you are sort of boxing up a piece of code and then you're reusing the same code in different places, but with different arguments, and what this is of an argument, why am I changing this, and how is this? It becomes quite abstract. So don't feel bad, it's super normal, it takes time to get your head around. And functions can become really tricky too, believe me. So yeah, don't feel bad about it. Totally normal. It's part of the journey, but because at the end you'll feel we get that adrenaline rush when you finally get it, and you're really feeling like you're accomplishing something. So definitely look forward for those moments and don't give up.
Nice. Awesome. And then I guess last one, and then we wrap up, which is, does Selenium work with JavaScript if I wanted to test it? I don't know.
So Selenium is what is called an end-to-end testing. So it kind of is it tests behavior. Does it work with JavaScript? Yes. It's commonly used with actually the big JavaScript frameworks. If you ask about Selenium, maybe you heard about React. React is built on JavaScript. Selenium used for testing it. Same with Angular. And it's basically, it will test your web pages. So it's mostly HTML and JS. So you're testing with Selenium. So yeah, definitely.
Nice. And Sergio, if you can just scroll down to show the last function to Ariane.
Sure. Again, I'll copy this link. I'll post it again on the comments, and you guys can see the code I just written live. There we are. To everyone.
Great.
So you feel free to click on that sandbox link. You'll get access to the code. You can play around with it. Again, you can fork it so it creates your own version, and you can take it apart, tinker with it, change the values. Same thing with the CSS, change the values around. Same thing with HTML, change the values around, see what's the behavior. A lot of learning about programming is tinkering and taking things apart and see how they behave. So having this curiosity, 100%, yeah, go for it.
Nice. I think that's us then. just a big thank you, I guess, to everyone who came and who listened. Thank you, Sergio, of course, for the excellent demo. Thanks,
No
Kimberly
worries.
and Codebar for hosting us.
Absolutely.
Feel really, really happy to have been here in front of you all,
Lovely.
and thanks everyone for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for coming, for your time. I hope you enjoyed. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see you at Boolean sometime down the line.